for you to have a very good write up, you have to avoid repetition in your writing. What do we mean by this is that in case you want to write an essay, for instance, now, there are some certain things that you want to express. You want the person to know that this is what you are feeling about. You must avoid making repetition of words. How do we avoid repetition in our writing? Is what this morning topic is all about, underwriting. But how do we avoid repetition in what we write? The first one, you have to be very careful in whatever you want to write, so that you won't make mistake of repeating words. Like you want to say something and you are continuing saying it, like we're having the whole world right now, the issue of pandemic. Maybe you want to express yourself about how the government can tackle the menace that we're having right now, which is pandemic. And you continue by saying pandemic in every sentence that you are making. It will look boring to the reader. So you just have to make sure that you find another word to replace that particular pandemic. Maybe you use its real name, like coronavirus 2019 COVID-19 in a short form, or you use disease or a virus. That is how to avoid repetition in whatever you want to write in. Now, it says that careful repetition of words and phrase can help to make your sentence well connected. You have to be very careful in how you choose your word. You have to be careful. Don't be careless. Be careful and don't be careless in choosing your words, in choosing your phrase, so that your sentences can be well connected and your writing clear and united with one another. This can help the reader to focus attention on central idea. Don't forget that you want to express yourself about something.
Come here, sir. Faisal Awal, can you hear me? This class is for your sister, not you. This is for GSS
This
1.
one, yes.
Do you get that? This class is for your sister. So, kindly let her know. The class is for Zeno. If you can hear me, just wave your hand. If you can hear me, wave your hand. Wave your hand, wave your hand. This class is for your sister. It's for Zainab, GSS 1. Do you get that now? I can't hear you, Faiza. Okay, Mr. Suleiman, you can continue.
All right. Like I was explaining to you the other time before we pause, is that whenever you want to write something, you want to express yourself about particular feelings, about particular idea, you just have to make sure you don't repeat words, you don't repeat phrase, you don't repeat a sentence in whatever you want to put together as your idea or your feelings about a particular something. However, like we said, there are repetitions that can mar your write-up. There are repetitions that can mar your write-up. That means there are repetitions that can make your write-up not reasonable enough to the reader. Just you have to be very careful in making such repetitions. It will make it boring to the reader too. Maybe you are writing a letter to someone and you continue repeating a word continuously. You are just repeating it. In this sentence, you say it. In other sentence, you continue repeating it. It will look boring to the reader. The following advice can help you to overcome this problem. Don't forget, it's a problem if someone cannot avoid repeating words. If someone cannot avoid repeating phrase, and if someone cannot avoid repeating sentence, it is a problem. So how do we solve this problem? We have three ways in which you can solve this kind of repetition in whatever you want to write. The first one is this: use pronoun to avoid repetition. This is the first solution to avoid repetition. The first one is this: use pronouns in case, in position, you can say in position or in case of noun or noun phrases. This is the first one. I will explain this to us right now. Don't forget I told you under pronoun that if I ask you to give me definition of pronoun now, I'm very sure you should be able to give me correct definition of pronoun for those people that are online right now. You should be able to remember the true definition of pronoun. Pronoun can simply be defined as words used in case or in place of a noun. You don't want to repeat name of a person. You don't want to repeat name of a place. You don't want to repeat name of things. You can just simply introduce pronoun in place of that particular noun or that particular noun phrase. That is the simple definition of pronoun. Whenever you are writing something, instead of repeating the name of the person, the name of that place, the name of that particular animal, or the name of the thing, just introduce pronoun in place of that noun. This will make you avoid making repetition in what you are writing. It will allow you not to repeat same thing in what you are writing. Let me give you this example. If someone can say, Mrs. Peter lives in a big house. Mrs. Peter. This is an example. Mrs. Peter lives in a big house with Mrs. Peter's children and Mrs. Peter's husband. Don't forget, Mrs. Peter always likes to eat rice cooked by Mrs. Peter's friend. This is just an example of repetition in a write-up. Let's look at it once again. Mrs. Peter lives in a big house, which Mrs. Peter's children and Mrs. Peter's husband are living together. This is just an example of repetition. Mrs. Peter always likes to eat rice cooked by Mrs. Peter's friend. If you look at this write-up, these sentences, you will discover that Mrs. Peter was repeated several times without number. Mrs. Peter lives in a big house with Mrs. Peter's children and Mrs. Peter's husband. They are living together. Mrs. Peter always likes to eat rice cooked by Mrs. Peter's friend. In order not to make this boring to the person that is reading your letter or the person that is in charge of what you are presenting, you just have to avoid repeating this particular noun phrase, Mrs. Peter, in whatever you are saying or whatever you are writing. Just have to make sure that you don't repeat this is Mrs. Peter in all phrases or all sentences that you are putting together in your write-up. You just have to avoid repeating Mrs. Peter. How do you do that? Let's come back to this. Use pronouns in case of noun or noun phrase. You can simply mention Mrs. Peter just once. Just mention Mrs. Peter once, and you can change the whole Mrs. Peter in the sentence to pronoun. How do you do that? Mrs. Peter lives in a big house with, just note this, with her, that's third person singular, with her children and her husband. And her husband, yes. That means they are living together. They are living together. Mrs. Peter always liked to eat. She likes. This is subject now. She always likes to eat rice cooked by, don't forget, her friend. She always likes to eat rice cooked by her friend. What this is telling us is that instead of repeating Mrs. Peter in what you are saying or in what you are writing, just try and introduce pronoun in place of noun or noun phrase you are having in the sentence to avoid repetition. That's the first solution that you should take. Don't just keep repeating a noun or a noun phrase in your write-up or in your presentation to make it look good in the eye of the reader. Don't just keep repeating it. The second example that I'll give to you, and that will be the solution to avoid repeating the same word or sentence in whatever you are writing, is use synonym to avoid repetition of key words. Use synonyms to avoid repeating words or phrase. This is the second solution in what you are writing. So use synonyms to avoid repeating words or phrase. I also told us sometimes last time I gave us the definition of synonyms. So I'll repeat it again, just in case for some of us that might have forgotten the definition of synonyms. Synonyms are words that are similar in meaning. Synonyms are words that are similar in meaning. That means in case you don't want to use a particular word, maybe you have been using it, but you want to use another word which is also close in meaning, just introduce synonyms. And the opposite of it is antonyms. We are not going there today, so let's make use of synonyms. If you don't want to repeat something, maybe you are saying something but you don't want to repeat it again, maybe in another phrase or in another sentence. I gave you many examples then. Let me just give you some today. If you are given a word or you want to use a word like this, solution, but you don't want to keep repeating solution in what you are saying, maybe you are just providing solution to the government on how to solve the issue of COVID-19 that is affecting the whole world right now, but you don't want to keep repeating this particular word. There are other words that you can introduce in place of this solution. Such word is remedy. Remedy. Maybe you're using solution in the first sentence. When you get to the second sentence, you can just change it to remedy, just to avoid using repetition. Another one is this, mark. Ma. You can just change it to spoil. Spoil. That is another one. Let me give you this. Vivid. Vivid. If you have a word like this, vivid, instead of repeating that vivid in another phrase or in another sentence, just make use of the word clear. Or another word, we have obvious. Obvious. Can use obvious, something that is clear. Can use obvious. Another one is this. Honest. Honest. If you want to use this particular word and you discover that in the previous sentence, I'm using this particular word, honest, you can just change it to like frank. Maybe you are saying honestly speaking, you can just change it to frankly speaking. These are synonymous to one another. Solution can have another word for it as remedy or panacea. You can have so many, or correction like that. Ma, that means to spoil something. You can use spoil, you can use damage as well. When something is clear and you don't want to use clear directly, you can make use of another word which is also the same in which means the same thing with clear. You can just make use of vivid or obvious. You are still passing the same message. Another one is this, honest. Someone can be honest. Someone can be frank. You can be truthful. It's still the same thing. Before we go on this, the second solution on how to avoid, let me give you another one here. Is horrible. Horrible. That is another word that you can use. Instead of using horrible, you can just change it to bad. Deplorable. It's still the same thing. Instead of using same words all the time, horrible, 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 it will sound boring to the reader. So you can just change it to bad. You don't want to use that. So don't forget, let me just go to the first solution. Use pronouns in case of noun or noun phrase, which is the first one here. Another solution that I want you to know is that instead of repeating words, make use of synonyms to avoid repeating words or phrases. So that's the second solution that I've given to you here. The last one that I'll be giving to us this morning on how to avoid making repetition in what you are writing is use a wide variety of linking words. Use a wide varieties of linking words. Words. Use a wide varieties of linking words. In English language, don't forget that we have different kind of linking words. You can also make use of conjunction here too. You want to link two phrases together or you want to link two or more sentences together, make use of these varieties of linking words. Example of such is this. Instead of saying first, example of linking words. Instead of saying first, you can use foremost. You can use foremost. That is one of the linking words. The second one is instead of saying secondly, maybe you finish one sentence, you want to express yourself further. Secondly, to start a sentence, you can simply say in addition. In addition, you don't want to repeat this secondly or thirdly, you can simply say in addition. In addition. Another linking word that we have in English language is also. Also. Instead of using this also, you can say furthermore. Furthermore. That is another linking words. We have numerous linking words in English language. We have moreover. And the last one, if you want to say finally, finally, you can simply say in conclusion. That means you've got to the last sentence of your expression. You want to express yourself and give conclusion of what you have been saying from the first sentence up to the last one. You can simply introduce this particular one to replace this, to avoid repetition in what you have been saying, to avoid repetition in what is use pronouns in case of nouns or noun phrases. Use pronouns in case of nouns or noun phrases. Don't forget, pronouns are used to replace nouns in whatever we are writing. The second one is use synonyms to avoid repeating words or phrases. You can use synonyms. If you say a word in English language today, it's not only in English language, in every language that we are having, if you mention a word or say a word like this, as the word you've mentioned, don't forget that synonyms makes your work, makes your presentation look more all right, look more okay. So don't forget to make use of synonyms in whatever you want to write. Avoid repeating words or phrases. The third one, which is the last solution to solve repetition of words in whatever you are writing or in whatever you are presenting, is use a wide varieties of linking words. I gave you different examples. Instead of first, you can use foremost. That means it's also the same meaning. Secondly, you can use in addition. You can use however. You can use thirdly. Instead of using also, you can use furthermore. And the last one, by saying finally, you can just change it to in conclusion in order not to repeat what you've already said in the first place and repeating it again, to make your writing, to make your debate, to make your letter that you're writing to the chairman of your local government, the principal of your school, the proprietors of your school, the governor of your state, or even the president of the country, or someone that is holding a particular office. Don't forget, formal letter is just for you to write to the person in charge of that office, not to the person in particular, but the office the person is holding. An informal letter, these are letters that you write to your family, friends, relative, uncle, aunts, and the rest of your family. You can use some words there. It is allowed to use some words that are normal daily activities words. You can use it in this. It is allowed here. But don't forget, don't use any area language here or slang. Avoid it. Don't use it here in whatever you want to write, whether it is a letter or it is an argumentative essay. We've come to the end of this class for Basic 7 on our topic for today, which is how to avoid repetition in writing. If you have any question now, you can simply ask. Anything that is not that clear to you in this topic, you can ask questions about it because before I give you